Yasmin.
Hi, good morning, everyone.
Hi.
Hi, Neil.
Here, see here. Love your photo, your background photo, profile photo. Awesome. Very cute.
Yes. Okay, awesome. We'll give it maybe a minute or two, Karen, and
Okay.
then we'll kick it off. Today,
Okay.
Karen is gonna walk us through, workplace communication, and she'll also introduce herself and share tons of wisdom about what she's been through. Right, Karen?
Yeah.
Amazing. Looking forward to it. Uh,
And Ahmed, since I have the hard stop, do you want me to call that, or do you want to kind of manage the time, or what would be best there?
yeah, I think again we will manage the time and we'll
Yeah.
eventually, finish on time. So we
Yeah.
can try
Okay.
to give folks, 10, 15 minutes before the end to ask
Yeah.
questions, and then we'll take the selfie and then we'll let you go.
Okay.
Awesome. Cool. So let me see here if we have enough crowd and. Yeah. Hey, Kimberly. Morning. Okay, awesome. I think we can get started. So happy. Let me do the recording. I always forget. Okay, awesome. So happy Sunday, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. This is again a future career community where we help, professionals land jobs in Canada and the US. Every week we get a good host, a good speaker, to help you with your journey. Job search journey is very tough, very difficult. There is so many things that could happen, and I've been helping people for the last maybe 5 years almost. Helped more than 700 professional land jobs in US and Canada, and now I'm doing this full time. You're using my company, Future Career. So today, again, I'm very blessed to have Karen. She's a great leader. She's a communication expert. She used to be part of this member of community since some time now, almost 2 years. Karen, if I remember correctly, right?
That sounds about right. Yeah.
And she's helping community whatever she can. She share posts of jobs or other nice communities also, or nice calls, and she's today going to speak with us about the art of communication in the workplace. Karen, we're very, very excited to have you with us today, and I'll let you, do a quick introduction and then jump into the topic.
Okay. Yeah. So thanks again, Ahmed, for asking me to participate. I actually met Ahmed through our mutual colleague, Jonathan Tennis, who was someone I met through one of the internal networking groups at Microsoft. And that's sort of my first takeaway, is that get involved outside your immediate role. Not only has my connections with Jonathan and Ahmed and other people connected me with groups like this, but within Microsoft, I also was able to present a couple times about my work as an artist outside of my work in tech. So really valuable to just get out there and meet people outside of your immediate team.
Awesome. Thanks, Karen. And again, I know we're very glad to have you today. So how do you want to get started today? Do you want me to ask you questions, or do you want me to let you give more introduction about yourself?
Yeah. Well, so I have, I can tell you a little bit more about my background and how it's pertinent to the communications piece. And then I have a number of pointers that I thought are really relevant to everyone, regardless of what their role is and whatnot. So I was thinking I could go through sort of my pointers. I will have a handout that I'll provide a link for at the end so that you can review those after the call. And then I was thinking that we could just open it up for questions, because I have a good idea of what a lot of all of you are facing, but I certainly don't know everything. So I think it's better to give you the chance to ask me some specific questions, and I will do my best based on my background to answer those. So.
Absolutely. Awesome.
Yeah. So my career actually has included stints in a lot of different areas. Journalism, that led to corporate communications work. And then I also have had kind of side hustles in both fitness and fine art. And communications has really been at the core of successes and explorations in all those areas. As Ahmed mentioned, I've been on this call, 3 other job search calls, and a number of life and career coaching calls in the past few years as I looked for my next full-time role after I was part of the June 2023 layoffs at Microsoft. And, since then, obviously, there's been thousands and thousands of people laid off at Microsoft, Amazon, throughout tech and other industries. And so I was lucky that my freelancing background helped keep me afloat, but also really frustrated that I kept running into roadblocks despite having senior level skills in so many different things. So, one of the things that I'm noticing is that your technical skills are part of the picture, but communication skills are really important. And people think that you have to be an expert writer or speaker, but that's not really true. There are a lot of other ways that you can interact with people with your unique skill set. And there are some challenges that all of us face regardless of our role. First one should be obvious in a way, but I think it's not always, is to listen to people. If you stop in a conversation and focus on what people are talking about and just kind of what they're excited about, or just like the language that they use, you can focus on their needs and not your own. And one of the places that I noticed that in my own job search was I would get contacted by recruiters, and they would be so focused on filling a role that they sometimes wouldn't answer my questions about, what is this role? What company is it? What team is it? And, really the best recruiters out there were listened, and they really looked not only to answer the kind of obvious questions I was asking, but also the, kind of things that I might be hinting at, so pay attention to what people are saying. Another way is communicating the way that makes the most sense to you. And part of that has a lot to do with your learning style. So, people communicate differently and learn differently, and visual, auditory, and kinesthetic are some of the key ways that people learn. There are quizzes to learn your learning style if you don't know them already. But that's another way is if you're interacting with someone, say, who has a visual style, you'll want to, say, include a deck or include a video or something like that. Or if it's someone who's kinesthetic, you might want to actually have them kind of practice whatever you're talking about. Another one is to lean into your natural style. So I work with a kind of mostly personal coach, but also does some career coaching, Jay Chase. He has us do this inventory called the flight assessment, and that shows us traits from different styles, and the 4 styles are identified by their pace of interaction and also their priority of focus. So that's things like how quickly you move. Do you make decisions quickly? do you need some time to make those decisions? And then also whether you tend to be more focused on process or personal interactions. And so that's another thing to kind of pay attention to when you're talking to someone. If they seem to be someone who, I'm someone who kind of moves quickly. And so, but if I'm talking to someone who obviously needs a lot of time to make a decision, slow things down. It makes sense to fit with what resonates, kind of the speed that resonates with the other people involved. So one of the easy ways, I feel like a lot of people say, I can't do LinkedIn. I don't know how to do that. And I think a lot of people think that you have to be a professional writer or a professional, designer to create great visuals or whatever. But one of the ways that has been most successful for me is just to find other people's content and sharing it along with a sentence or two about why it resonated. And I think that's a really great way. It basically shows that you're, paying attention to and, promoting other people, which, gives kind of can gain a lot of goodwill from that. And I think too that shows that you're a connector, and that's a really valuable skill set in business. And this all is done really with less writing. Another thing is to consider, where are you an expert? I think people get focused on what they don't know, but if you think about where you shine, what type of topics people might ask you about, or what seems easy to you. And usually those are kind of your superpowers. And so, for me, I'll really lean into those. And, obviously there's going to be scenarios where people want something from you that's not within your kind of area of expertise. But definitely, if you can share things that are simple for you, that makes the whole process a lot easier. Another thing is that I feel like not everyone is your audience. That was one thing I noticed in the job search, is that sometimes I would get so fixated on getting just my next role. Sometimes I'd have conversations with people that weren't really, a good fit. And so one thing that I noticed is motivational interviewing is one thing that I learned from my coaching experience. And you can use that with other people or, yourself, but it's often about, tell me more about that or why or whatever. So never just take what either someone is saying to you or even what you're saying to yourself as the final, reason. Just keep asking why, and that will kind of get to the core of what's really important to the other person or to yourself. And I think by doing that, that you, in the job search, that it will help you stay focused on the type of roles and the type of conversations and the type of people that you need to be talking to, and allow you to, not spend time on conversations that really won't get you to where you want to be. Flip side of that is really anyone could be your connection. We can focus on people that we think can help us get our next job. And, but that's not really what it's all about. I mean, a lot of times, a random conversation that you have can turn into your next role. So, I mean, as an example, not that it turned into a role, but, the other day I changed internet providers and had a fantastic conversation with the installer technician. And so just things like that, just talking to people that seem interesting to you can to lead to things. And then really like the one other thing that I wanted to bring up, because
Karen, Karen,
it's
do you mind if we see if the group has also questions to you?
oh
Well,
sure, yeah.
if you guys have questions, definitely raise your hand. We definitely want to keep this, interactive and engaging. If and again, I want to also give Karen a little bit of breath, to catch.
Okay.
You've been speaking for some time. So, guys, do you have any questions, any follow-ups on what Karen just mentioned about the listening, the educational way of getting information? What's your type? And maybe Karen, do you know what would be the best way to discover which type is suitable for an audience? How would you discover that, or what do you advise here?
So there's I kind of addressed a few different types there. There are, in terms of the learning styles, if you just Google learning style, you can typically take a quiz. You can, find out more about what your style is. And then also, if you kind of pay attention to the other styles, so say you're a visual learner, if you look at what, say, an auditory learner or a kinesthetic learner, how they communicate, you can pay attention to how they're interacting with you, or kind of the language that they're using. For instance, say maybe an auditory learner might say, "Oh, I hear you," about that or whatever. And so just listen to kind of the subtleties as far as how people are communicating. The other thing that I mentioned, that flight assessment, I will be providing a link to my coach, and also to that assessment. Although if you work with my coach, it's a better deal than the assessment that's online. And those, basically, I want to say it's probably, I think you get something like 6 or 7 pages back that talk about, what is your style, what's your primary style. It will show you kind of graphs as far as like how you score on the 4 different types. So that will give you a sense of, where you are strongest and how you are least inclined, I guess, to communicate. And it also does give you pointers on, here's where you can shine, but it also will tells you a little bit about, these are areas where you might have some challenges, and this is how you can do a better job of communicating and interacting with people, so that you kind of meet people on their own ground, I guess.
I love it. And this motivational interview, what you shared before, is that same like the information interview, or is it different?
It's something that's used a lot in coaching. So I was like a personal trainer for a while, and so that's where I started to learn about it. There are also a ton of books about that. There's one called Motivational Interviewing that's kind of like the gold standard as far as that. And I can actually include that when I'll do a revision on the handout or whatever. But that's also something that you can Google. But it's about never taking things sort of at face value necessarily. Maybe not never, but often not taking things at face value. And it's kind of about being curious. So curiosity is one of my in my various tests that I've done. Curiosity is, I think, it's my second kind of trait. So it comes really naturally to me. And that's, why I got into journalism, because journalism is all about asking questions, right? So it's easy for me, but I mean, even if you're, if it doesn't come as easily to you, it's a skill that you can develop or whatever. And so, I'm trying to think if there's any really online resources. One thing, you might want to do is just look at motivational interviewing for more details on it. And then ask one of your friends or colleagues about, can I have a conversation with you and can I practice my skills?
Yeah.
In this area. So.
I love it. Thanks. Any questions from the group? Guys, are you following so far? Cool. Awesome. So maybe I'll let you go to your next point, Karen.
Yeah. I may have to go deeper on some of these because I have literally one more point on this. But one of the things that has come up with the Mentorship Live coaching group that I mentioned as well is neurodivergence. And I feel like that's come up a lot more in the news. And it's an area that it seems to be a little bit more common in the tech space or whatever. And so basically the bottom line is that, not all of our brains work the same. Because of that, we don't communicate the same. And so, like as an example, like there's neurodivergent and there's neurotypical. Neurotypical is there's more people like that, people who are neurodivergent are really direct, or they can take things literally, and that can be beneficial, but sometimes people want things more sugar-coated. So, again, I feel like it's one of those things, like we all have our natural tendencies of communicating a certain way, but a lot of times I think it's just about slowing down and paying attention to how the conversation is going, and adapting again based on what you're hearing from the other person. So, I'm trying to think what else to address here.
I think if you don't mind, maybe I can ask you a few questions, Karen, and maybe also the group can ask you, because again, you bring a ton of wisdom, you've a ton of experience with Microsoft, you've been creating so many communication, maybe websites or SharePoint pages and others. So what would be the best way to create maybe a one-pager website or one-pager SharePoint that would land the message of a specific, let's say, thing, that a report or maybe a message or an idea? What would be your top way of getting this done?
So like one of the key things is that for instance, like again, understand your audience. So I have worked at Microsoft with MSN, which is obviously a more consumer audience, and our style there, was more kind of journalism based or whatever. But within other teams at Microsoft, I created content that was geared towards developers, towards Microsoft business partners. And so, really think about like who that person is. Like as an example, with commercial licensing, I was an editor and producer with that team. And so our audience primarily was the partners who were helping to sell and support different Microsoft solutions, right? And so one thing that I noticed is that a lot of the content that the program managers would create was extremely technical, but then I kind of looked at, yes, a lot of times the audience might be really technical. It might be, it might be an IT manager. It might be the person who is purchasing the software solution. But also I felt like there were times when we might have a really small business, be interacting with a small business owner, and they might be doing everything, and they might not be as technical in their communications or kind of their expertise or whatever. And so one of the things that I always kind of asked of the program managers is, to consider that. And I would go back and I'd say, how about if we presented this a little bit more simply and focused really on the solution rather than, the technical points, which may or, ultimately, really even for most people, even the IT managers, they care less. They may understand the technical points, but they care less about that than how it's going to make their job easier. So, and the final thing, or maybe not final, but another thing in terms of like a one pager is a lot of times I would get extremely wordy documents. And so, it's easier for me because I'm an editor and writer to simplify those things. But I don't know, maybe like if you're not an editor or writer, kind of force yourself to go through, a document, say it's a 2-page document or whatever, force yourself to go through there and find, I don't know, 5 or 6 points that you think are the most important and use that for your one pager. Because, I feel like so many times one pagers, advertisements, so many things that I've worked on get way too complex and way too wordy, so just have like a simple, maybe a bullet point, maybe a short sentence or 2 blurb underneath that, but don't go crazy with too much information.
100%. And I see Neil have his hand raised. So Neil, I think you have a question or follow-up.
Yeah, Karen brought up some really interesting comments a little earlier about asking why the questions and being the literal aspect. I spent most of my career as the tech lead in a sales organization, so working with account execs as the sales engineer and dealing with customers, and you get trained in listening to the cues that are being, not exactly what they're saying, but what's behind what they're saying. Yeah. And it always shocked me the number of people when I was in meetings, the customer's saying something and I'm watching this tech person explain to them and go, that's not what they're looking for. You're missing completely the cue behind what it is they're asking. You're actually taking the question literally, and that's not behind it. So job interviews are the same. They will ask you things in an interview and people will answer directly what that is without taking a second to really think about why they're asking that question or what might be behind the question. So I always tell people to kind of, if you're going to, doing job interviews is not, let's look up a list of the questions they're going to ask me and I'm going to have a response for them. Take a look online to see if you can find stuff about what are behind some of these questions and behind some of the interviews of what they're trying to do, and understand the role implicitly, like really understand what would be behind it, what you anticipate would be happening in that role, and try to formulate based on cues as opposed to necessarily specifically answering. There are questions you're going to have to answer directly, but exactly what Karen was thinking, if the question just feels funny, start asking the question why. Sorry, could you explain it in more detail? Exactly what Karen was saying.